Genesis 19 and verse 23. The sun had risen over the earth when Lot came to Zoar. Then the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the valley and all the inhabitants of the cities and what grew on the ground. But his wife from behind him looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Now Abraham rose early in the morning and went out to the place where he had stood before the Lord. And he looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the valley. And he saw, and behold, the smoke of the land ascended like the smoke of a furnace. Thus it came about when God destroyed the cities of the valley that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot lived. So let's go back now. Let's look at verse number 29. The sun had risen over the earth when Lot came to Zoar. The angel told him, it's almost sun up. We got to get out of here. I'm going to destroy everything. And the sun had risen over the earth when they came to that little village of Zoar. Lot and his family reached there, and then verse 24 and 25, then the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah, brimstone and fire, the Lord out of heaven, and he overthrew the cities. And also what grew on the ground, the last sentence in that verse. So what a destruction it was that took place. It's amazing destruction. We would run to get away too. We'd go to the mountains or wherever he told us to go. Lot said he couldn't go there. So they went to the town of Zoar. Deuteronomy 29, when God is going to punish Israel because they are worshiping idols. He's going to punish them severely. And he gives an example of Sodom and Gomorrah in Deuteronomy 29, verse 23. And its land is brimstone and salt, a burning waste, unsown, unproductive. No grass grows on it, like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah and Admon and Zebulun, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and in his wrath. So it's an amazing today. You can go there. Jim has went there, and you can see the devastation of the place. I mean, what I think of is when Abraham was with the angels and he went up on the side of that mountain toward Zoar, and he looked, and all the land was green. It had well watered. It was a great plain. It was great for raising crops or raising herds, and now it is a wasteland, and it is to today. We saw. Did we see you light that brimstone, Jim? Did we see you light that brimstone? I don't know why I have that in my vision in my mind. Well, anyway, you can go there today and you'll see brimstone and salt everywhere. It's a total waste. You can pick up little round brimstones, some about that big, some maybe a little bigger, some up to that big, that was raining down on all of that. And you can go see that. You can pick it up. You can take a pocket knife and dig in the walls and find that. And you can take the little bitty brimstone, let's say you take the little one about this size, and you set it down on something hard like a rock, and you take a match and strike it and light it, and the whole thing just completely vanishes. It just burns completely up. It's an amazing thing that you can still see that. So that's what consumed these cities and the people. And the soil once was a fertile plain, and now it's nothing. I don't know if it was a clear water lake that was near there, but I'll say this, the destruction of the included the water. It ruined the water. We call it now the Dead Sea. It's 6 times saltier than the ocean. That buddy of mine, he walked out there about knee deep, and maybe a little bit deeper, and tried and laid down, and that's so simple. He just floated like a cork on the water. But the problem he had was standing up, trying to get your knees and your legs back down to the ground. The salt is so thick. amazing that it was once a fertile plain, well watered. I don't know how to think about that. I don't. I try to put myself there, but it's pretty frightening. When Jesus warned his disciples to flee, Jesus told his disciples to flee to Jerusalem. He warned his disciples to get out of Jerusalem at the destruction of Jerusalem in Luke 17, verse 28 through 32. I always like to read that because he reminds the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. He's talking about getting out of Jerusalem before the destruction in 70 A.D., but in Luke 17, verse 28 is something really, really interesting. And when Jesus says, a lot of people say, well, I wonder if that really happened. Well, Jesus said it happened. And in Luke 17, beginning verse 28, it was the same as happened in the days of Lot. They were eating, they were drinking, they were buying, they were selling, they were planning, they were building. But on that day, Lot went out from Sodom, and it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. It will be just the same on that day the Son of Man is revealed. On that day, the one who is on the housetop and whose goods are in the house must not go down and take them out. Likewise, the one who is in the field must not turn back. Remember Lot's wife, he said. And then let's go to, that's good enough, 32. So it's a true event. It actually happened. It's now a total wasteland if you go there. Verse 26, but his wife from behind looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. We've known all this story all our lives, haven't we? We've all known this story since a child. And we see pictures of this. You see pictures of Sodom and Gomorrah today and all the hills and around, and there'll be pillars standing up. One of them looked just like a woman back then standing up, and they call it Lot's wife. But I don't know about that. Because, why do I not know about that? Was it up there on that mountain that this happened? It was down in the plain at the city of Zoar. When they were going in Zoar, she turned around and looked back. They ran to that town, and this is where she looked back. I want to ask you something. What do you think her reason was? Why would she look back? Was it because of family ties? That maybe someone else there that she knew that were friends or family that she looked back? Was it because she had old friends there? She looked back at that? Or did she just want to see what was happening? Because that's a natural tendency of us. We want to look. When we know there's a tornado outside, what do? Instead of going to the bathtub and covering up or going into the storm cellar, we walk outside and look. We got to see it. I don't know. But it also looks kind of like that's where her heart was, doesn't it? What do y'all think? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Why would she look back? Lack of faith. Lack of faith.
It had to be super noisy. It had to be just a big commotion.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of see where I would do.
Yeah. Boy, it'd be hard not to look back, wouldn't it?
And for the storm, I mean,
Yeah.
we were all kind of checking it out.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be hard not to look back.
It wasn't hard for the rest of them.
No, it wasn't hard for the rest of them. Yeah. And I guess the moral of this is do what God says. Do what he says. I mean, this is an angel taking him by the hand and taking him out of there, and he knows that God is involved in this. And he's getting him to safety. All of them knew that. So the message is, don't look back. Don't look back at our old life. We got a new life. Have faith in God. That's the message. We'll never know what she had on her mind. We never will. But
Yeah, but one thing we do know she did obey. We do
that's the thing that we do know, that's one thing we can stand on, that's one thing that we can
That-
say. He didn't do what God told us to do.
That's right. That's the bottom line, isn't it? That's right. Even, she looked back, but what did Lot do? When the angels are trying to take them out, what did he do? He lingered. There was something about it that was a draw to him. Maybe he was worried about his two son-in-laws to be. I don't know, but he lingered. Instead of,
He had a lot of stock, he had riches, all that was gone.
yeah, all bit of,
Everything, all his livelihood was gone.
But that was his choice.
Yeah.
He chose it.
huh?
Still, his livelihood was gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, how about your livelihood? If it's fixed to be destroyed, do we kind of linger around, kind of help it out?
I know one thing. I don't know why he went to that cave, because of what you said. Abraham had saved him so many times. Why didn't he go back to Abraham and maybe buy something or on borrow? You don't know.
But you got to think about this. Now you sitting there, and God told you to do something, and this is going to happen, and you're sitting there and you're hearing all of this fire and brimstone and smoke and all that kind of stuff going down, and you hear all of that. Then all of a sudden you look around, your wife is a pillow of salt. What are you doing? I'm going to the mountain. I was going
Yeah.
to the mountain. That's where I'm going. I don't want to.
Yeah, I don't want to hang around this town.
I'm pretty sure he kind of got in his mind that, no, we stayed in the mountain. God didn't go to the mountain. He didn't say go anywhere else. I'm going to the mountain.
Yeah. We have other examples of disobeying God. Every one of the Israelites knew that they can't touch the ark. Every one of them. They knew the only people that could handle the ark. And so here we got this guy, and they were hauling the ark on a cart, which was not the authorized way. And who was it that reached out and touched the ark because he thought it was fixing to fall? You remember what his name was? Huh? Yes, sir. And it struck him dead. So there's another example of obeying God's commands. She didn't fall down. She stood up erect when she became this pillar, because a pillar doesn't lay flat on the ground, I wouldn't think. Maybe eventually, but she became an instant pillar of salt. That would, you say to yourself, if you had seen that, boy, there's nothing God says I'm not going to do. Don't we say that? Boy, we say that to ourselves. Oh man, I will do everything He said to do. Until a few years pass, go by, the months fly, and the years fly, and we forget. We're forgetting people, aren't we? We forget a lot of things. So he was immediate death, that's for sure. And it changed her to a pillar of nothing but salt.
The way we're going today,
We may do it.
things like destroying Sodom and Gomorrah,
Yeah.
going on right here in the United States.
Yes, sir. Happening this very day.
And how long will He tolerate it?
Yeah.
It's scary thing.
It is.
Right to soul.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing, isn't it? Yeah. 27 and 28. Now, Abraham, this is easy to picture in your mind. Now, Abraham rose early in the morning and went to the place where he had stood before the Lord, and he looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the valley. And he saw, and behold, the smoke of the land ascended like the smoke of a furnace. So you get this clear picture here, and we can see it take place in our eyes. We see through the eyes of Abraham, really, right here. He went to the place where he negotiated with God, and he looked down, and he saw right off there was not 10 righteous people that were found in those areas in Sodom and Gomorrah. The cities weren't saved. And he knew the answer right away, because the smoke was coming up like a furnace. You ever stood in front of a furnace? You know exactly, this is a great example for us. We know what this feels like. And you know he prayed for mercy for Lot. You know he worried about Lot and his family. He's concerned about him. But he also knew that God would take care of him, and because in Genesis 18 and verse 25 tells us the judge of all the earth will do right. And so God will remember Abraham. He does save Lot. And so in verse 29, it came about when God destroyed the cities of the valley that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow when he overthrew the cities in which Lot lived. So Lot is safe. God remembered Abraham. One righteous man did not save Sodom and Gomorrah. It didn't. There weren't even 10. But Abraham, his intercession with the Lord didn't save Lot and his family, but it was not because Abraham pleading. It was because God is caring about Abraham. Plus the New Testament says Lot was a righteous man. 2 Peter chapter 2. And so now in verses 30 to 38, it's very perplexing, very upsetting. Verse 30, Lot went up to Zoar, from Zoar, and stayed in the mountains, and his 2 daughters with him, for he was afraid to stay in Zoar. And he stayed in a cave, and he and his 2 daughters. So Lot left Zoar. He was afraid to stay there. He didn't know what was going to happen after he left or while he was there. So he's afraid of more destruction, I would think, or the effects of the destruction. So he took his 2 daughters with him, and he went up to the mountains where he should have went from the very first time when the angel said, escape to the mountains. And so they're there now. In verse 31 and 32, then the firstborn said to the younger, our father is old, and there's not a man on earth to come into us after the manner of the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and let us lie with him, that we may preserve our family through our father. This is so puzzling to me. Here are these daughters, and they think their dad is the only human being left on earth. The entire earth. They just left the little village of Zoar. They had to have some men there, maybe. Abraham, you know, Abraham's got a lot of people up there. I don't understand it. I remember when I was a kid, I thought where I lived was the only place in the world. Did you do that? Did you think that as a little kid? I mean, little. It's the only place in the world. There is no other place. But they're not kids. I don't know what they're thinking. They thought if they didn't have children with their father, then that would be the end of humanity. And I wonder why Lot didn't leave the cave with his daughters and go back to Abraham. I don't know. We'll never know until we ask when we get farther along. So he who owed his safety before to Abraham, I don't know. So they gave Lot wine until he was intoxicated, and they knew their father would never agree to commit sin of incest. That's why they got him drunk. And so the oldest daughter devised this plan. In verses 33 through 36, this is what takes place. The first daughter goes in, and then the second daughter goes in, and the reason for both daughters was to increase the chances of having children. In verse 36, both daughters were pregnant. Verse 37 and 38, the firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. We'll talk about that in a second. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. As for the younger, she also bore a son and called his name Ben-Ami. He is the father of the sons of Ammon to this day. Moab means of the father, of his father. So the Moabites settled east of the Jordan River. They worshiped false gods, 1 Kings 11 and verse 7. They were probably in the times of Ezra and Nehemiah. They were ultimately destroyed, and it was to fulfill prophecy of Jeremiah 48 and 49, chapters 48 and 49. Ben-Ami means son of my people. He would be called the Ammonites. They settled in the same area around Moab, and they too worshiped false gods. So we see how their life went, and Moab was eventually destroyed. When the children of Israel were going to the promised land, the first people they met was from where? Moab. And God wouldn't let them destroy him. They made an agreement and went around that territory. So there we have chapter 19. What are some lessons we learn? The first thing I think we learn is God doesn't tolerate sin. He didn't tolerate it then. He doesn't tolerate it today, like Darwin said. But in our age that we live in today, you know, we're tolerant. We're supposed to be tolerant. I'm watching the Golf Channel or the college baseball games, the playoff, the College World Series, and here is a commercial about pride and all this kind of stuff. And do you know the Texas Rangers were the only Major League Baseball team that didn't do Pride Week? I like the Texas Rangers.
You can't get the homosexual week of pride. Everybody should have a little pride.
Yeah, it's sure misleading, isn't it?
Don't let them hijack the word.
Yeah, just like they've hijacked gay. Donnie Gay is a bull rider. Yeah, means happy. Yeah, yeah,
That's another thing. We let them hijack our words
Yeah.
ourselves. So
Yeah.
we shouldn't do that.
yeah. It's kind of like the denominational world hijacked born again. And for years we were afraid to even mention it. And so God doesn't tolerate sin. We developed this. You know why they're hitting us with all these commercials and all this? What do you think they're... Every time you turn on the TV to watch a baseball game, you may not be watching a baseball game, but here is all these commercials. What are they trying to do?
Desensitize you.
Huh?
Desensitize you.
Yes, sir. They're trying to brainwash us, make it normal lifestyle, calling evil good. We got to remember that. Homosexuality is immorality. It is a reprobate mind to go to that.
There was a bumper sticker that said, "The rainbow belongs to God."
Yeah, isn't that the truth? They stole that too. I want to say this carefully. We're not to be rude with them. We're not to be ugly with them. We're not to be mean to them. God still loves them, and we're to love them. But we can't love their sin, and we teach them what God's Word says. And Christians are not to be any part of this. It's not to be part of our lives. It is not a natural function of the body. It is far from natural. It is unnatural. Book of Romans.
You know, that's another thing that they throw at you. Well, God loves everybody, even the homosexual. Well, that's not it.
Yeah.
God loves the people. He does not love the sin. And that's we as Christians have got to divide that line
Yeah,
between the person and the sin.
that's right.
So don't let them go with that. God loves everybody, therefore he loves the homosexual. Yeah, he loves the person. He doesn't love the sin.
That's exactly right.
And we all have.
Huh? And we all are sinners, aren't we? Thank you.
You know, about that, homosexuality is probably the bottom of the barrel. We've been tolerant with all adultery and fornication and all these other things all the way up until now. We are paying the price. We've got to get down on those debased things that you do.
That's true. I'm going to see if I can find it right quick. If I can't, then I'll let it go. It's either, okay, it is chapter 1. Romans chapter 1 talks all about that, about how we fall into sin and the steps of falling into sin. It's kind of like Glenn said, all of these things, like possessing to be wise, and we became fools, exchanged the glory of the incorruptible God to an image in the form of corruptible man. So the first thing is going away from God. For this reason, God gave them over to degrading passions, unnatural function. The same way they abandoned the natural function of a woman, and on and on. And it finally gets to the bottom of the barrel that Glenn said, homosexuality, that, and a reprobate mind. That's what Paul calls it. When you reach the bottom of the barrel, you're a reprobate mind.
What gets me is the people who read that don't read the last verse, Romans chapter 1.
Yeah.
It says, not only do the same, but also approve
Yeah.
of the practice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Guilty, if you condone it, you should be guilty.
Just as guilty. That's true. Thank you. Yes, sir.
That has got one more thing, and I'll shut up for a while.
You're fine.
I was thinking that, how can a person that wants to say that they're Christian read chapter 1 of Romans still embrace homosexuality?
I don't know.
I don't understand that. And that church right across, Methodist church right across from us, they have just embraced homosexuality.
Yeah.
So I asked, how do you do that? How do you rectify this chapter in your beliefs?
They don't ever go there, just like they don't ever go to Acts 2:38. Yeah, you're right. It's pitiful. As Christians, I guess the next lesson is don't look back. Remember Lot's wife, Jesus said, paid the terrible price looking back. She was looking back at the world she left behind. So as Christians, we don't look back. We don't long for what we left behind. We're a new person in Christ. We're being transformed each and every day. Luke 9 and verse 62, Jesus said, no one, after putting his hand to what? The plow, and looking back, is fit for the kingdom of God. Do we know what he means? Do we know what he means? It means don't go back. You go forward. So, next thing we learn is these two daughters, we can't, just like Sarah, they're trying to do the work of God. They're trying to create and bring back the human race, and they don't have any faith to realize that God's going to take care of everything, and he'll repopulate the earth. He doesn't need them. God is capable. And then finally, if Sodom is destroyed, we always flee from sin. And I'm going to stop there, and we'll be on chapter 20 the very next Sunday.